Technical Writing for Inspectors, Module 5, Third Person, Gary A. Pace, P.E., CWI, Katy, Texas, TexasWeldingEngineering.com. Learning objectives. We're going to talk about the first person narrative, second person narrative, and the third person narrative. So once again, we've already talked about the first person, but the first person is a mode of storytelling which we use pronouns and we give our point of view. I, us, our, we, ourselves. It's storytelling. So that is the first person. We want to avoid that for the most part in technical writing. And as I said before, it may be narrated by first person protagonist, first person reteller, first person witness, first person peripheral. I poached that out of Wikipedia, but there's various ways that we can do the first person. But we're not going to do that here. We're not writing a novel about killing dragons or, some kind of detective story or whatever. We're not using first person. We're writing technical documents, and we want to avoid the first person. We can use it, but we want to avoid it. Okay, so we're going to talk about the second person. The second person is a point of view that refers to the person or people being addressed by the writer or the speaker. So an example of second person would be, you walk to the store. You guys have a purple car. Your company is a big company. And this uses the second person to say what you, the reader or listener, did. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about second person. And in this case, the sentence states, in our example, what the reader did. You walked to the store. It's not saying what happened from a third person point of view or an objective. It's saying what you did, what the reader did. So we don't want to do a second person report. That's not how we write things. Probably wasn't on our list of things to do, but I just wanted to cover, first, second, and third person. So third person is writing from a third person point of view, an independent observer, an outsider looking in. And we're going to use pronouns like he, she, it, or they. But for the most part, I don't use pronouns. I will use the inspector, the client, the welder, the foreman. I try not to use pronouns when I am writing a report. I try to use proper nouns. When we're using the third person, it differs from the first person writing, which uses pronouns such as I and me. You're not telling the story from your point of view. I went to the store. You would say the inspector went to the store. So it's kind of a different frame of mind to get into in writing, but once you get into it, writing in the third person is not too brutal. And also, third person differs from second person forms, which uses pronouns such as you and yours. We don't use you, yours, or any of that when we're doing the third person. Instead of saying your dog went to the store, the inspector's dog ran to the store. You would use the third person to describe what happened. You don't put it you as in the second person or I and me as in the first person. So why do we use the third person point of view? Well, the third person point of view has a much wider narrative scope than the first or second person. And we can put a spotlight on something that we want to put it on in regards to conveying information to the reader. And this is done a lot of times in other forms of writing, but for us it just gives us a wider narrative scope. Instead of saying I, we can say, like I said, the inspector. And it also gives us flexibility in writing and an objectivity. So it doesn't come off as your opinion. It comes off more as a objective viewpoint. That's why we use the third person point of view. And it gives flexibility and objectivity to the writing and allows the person doing the writing a little more flexibility in how they do things. Uh, and it gives more flexibility than the other two perspectives. And the author can write from a broader perspective. It's not just your point of view. You're looking at it from from an outsider's point of view, as an independent entity viewing what's going on and being able to communicate that as an objective observer and not I was there or I did this. So also why we use the third person, because reports are always expected to be objective, impersonal. And the third person passive tense is going to give us probably the most appropriate way to convey that information. So we're trying to be objective and impersonal. We're not trying to be involved. We're trying to just relay information. So that's why we do it in the third person. And the third person is considered to be way more formal and official than, a first person report. It takes the writer out of being directly involved in what's going on. And it converts you, the writer, the inspector, into just another individual who is passing on information to the reader. That's what we're trying to do. So we're trying to be a little more formal and official in our communication of information by taking us, I, we, me out of the report. And it's the inspector. It's the whoever. And so when we're writing anything formal, like an inspection report, we should use third person pronouns. And if we're using the third person, it gives the inspector's work a picture of objectivity rather than personal thoughts. So by doing this, like I said, the inspector found 27 welds that were defective, not I found 27 welds. By saying your title, the inspector, it gives you more of a sense of objectivity in regards to what information is being passed on to the reader rather than your personal thoughts on the matter. And this objectivity makes the inspector's work look more credible and less biased if you're going to do it this way. Summary. So we talked about the first person narrative, second person narrative, and third person narrative. Questions. Gary A. Pace, PE, CWI, Katy, Texas, TexasWeldingEngineering.com. Got any questions or comments? Contact me and I'll try and see what I can do to help you.